The woman hauled the timber alone, uphill, against gravity and judgment. Miguel Torres watched from his gelding on the ridge, late October wind biting through leather. That log needed 2 strong men, yet there she was, rope cutting into her shoulder, boots clawing rocky earth, calico dress caked in mud to the knees. Most would have surrendered hours ago. He guided his horse down the slope. The cabin emerged, walls barely waist-high, no roof, tools scattered like broken promises. A sagging canvas tent stood nearby, smoke curling from a pathetic fire. She heard hoofbeats, straightened, breath ragged, didn't run, didn't scream, just stood there, chin lifted, watching him approach like she'd been expecting trouble all along. "Afternoon," Miguel said, dismounting. "That's considerable work for one person. Don't need charity from strangers." Her voice held steel, but her hands gripped that rope like a weapon. He studied the structure. Roof won't hold without proper framework. Storm's coming, maybe 10 days. I'll manage. Miguel really looked at her then, a scar traced from temple to jawline, old and pale against sun-weathered skin. Fire, he guessed. She caught his stare, shoulders tensing. "I'm not pretty," she whispered, defensive, like she'd rehearsed this speech 1,000 times. Miguel met her eyes directly. "That's fine. I need honest, not fancy. Winter kills the pretty ones first out here. If you're enjoying this tale of courage and unexpected connection, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of survival and hope." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or suspicion that kindness existed at all. "Why help me?" she asked. "Because I'm tired of liars in silk dresses." Miguel arrived at dawn, carrying tools. Catalina Vega watched from her tent entrance, coffee pot in hand, uncertain whether to trust yesterday's promise. "Brought extra nails," he said simply, dropping supplies. "Your joints need reinforcement." They worked in cautious silence. He measured, she marked. He sawed, she hammered. By midday, the walls stood straighter, more confident somehow. "You do quality work," he said during their break. "Taught myself, after my husband died." She handed him water from a tin cup. "Town has plenty of widows. Why buy land this far out? Alone?" Her jaw tightened. "Merchant in town wanted me after Antonio passed, said I needed a man's protection. When I refused..." She stared into the fire. Rumors started. Cursed woman. Witch who burned her own house. Miguel waited, patient as stone. Fire started during a fight. Lamp broke. I tried pulling him out. He shoved me into the flames. I escaped. He didn't. She touched her scar unconsciously. Town buried him as a hero, buried me alive with gossip. "So you bought this claim?" "With everything I had left. Figured if I'm alone anyway, might as well be on my terms." This story gets deeper. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. She studied him carefully. "Ranch your size. You should have a wife. Son's helping." Miguel set down his cup. "Had a wife. Isabella. Beautiful woman. Everyone adored her. Wanted town life. Parties. Admiration. Ranch bored her." He paused. "She died 2 years back. Childbirth. Baby didn't make it either." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I loved her, but didn't like her much toward the end. Truth is, she didn't like me either." 1 week later, snow began falling. Catalina measured boards while Miguel sawed, their breath fogging in November cold. The cabin walls stood complete now. Roof frame half finished. They'd developed a rhythm, efficient as clockwork. "Hold steady," Miguel said, lifting a beam. She braced it while he hammered. Snow dusted their shoulders, melted against their necks. "Antonio used to drink," Catalina said suddenly. "Started after we lost our first baby. Got mean when he drank." Miguel kept hammering, but listened. "That night he came home drunk. Started yelling about supper, about me being useless. Knocked the lamp over during the fight." She stared at the beam. "I tried saving him. Even after everything, I tried." Miguel set down the hammer. "Isabella wanted everything I couldn't give. Status, excitement. I knew she was unhappy. Kept hoping the ranch would be enough." He looked toward distant mountains. "When she died, my first thought was relief. Been hating myself ever since. Maybe God gives us what we can't keep, so we learn what we actually need," Catalina said quietly. "Maybe." Miguel picked up his hammer again. "Or maybe God's quieter than preachers claim." The snow intensified suddenly. Thick flakes. Wind rising. "We need to stop," Miguel said, squinting skyward. "This is turning into a blizzard. Hit like if this story is touching your heart, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of real human connection. You should go before it worsens." Too late for that. He secured tarp over the unfinished roof. "I'm staying tonight." Catalina's face went carefully blank. "There's only one blanket. We'll manage." By nightfall, the storm howled like demons outside. They sat by the fire inside the half-finished cabin, canvas tarp overhead, sharing Catalina's blanket around their shoulders, not touching, but close enough to feel each other's warmth. Catalina pulled a water-stained book from her pack. "Do you read?" "Barely," Miguel admitted. "Never had much schooling." "I could teach you, if you want." "I'd like that." She opened to a marked page, began reading aloud. Homer's Odyssey, Penelope waiting for Odysseus. Her voice was soft but clear, turning ancient words into something alive. Miguel listened like a man starving for more than food. Somewhere around midnight, exhausted, Catalina's head drooped against his shoulder. He went completely still, afraid to wake her, afraid to move and break whatever this was. At dawn, she stirred, realized where she was. Their eyes met. Neither spoke, neither pulled away. Then Miguel looked through the doorway, just a frame with no door yet, and his expression hardened. "What?" Catalina asked. "Horse tracks in the snow, fresh ones. Someone circled the cabin during the storm." They stood together in the doorway. In the distance, riders approached. 3 men, led by Padre Whitmore. Miguel moved beside Catalina, close enough that his presence made a statement. The town had come calling, and judgment rode with them. 2 weeks later, the cabin neared completion. Door hung, windows sealed, chimney drawing smoke properly. Catalina plastered gaps between logs while Miguel fitted shutters outside. She heard him humming the first music this silent place had known. They'd found their rhythm. She anticipated his needs. He read her exhaustion without asking. Conversations deepened beyond mere survival. "You mentioned reading," Miguel said during their noon break. "What else you have?" Catalina produced 3 more books from her trunk. Shakespeare, Whitman, a worn Bible. "These survived the fire. Everything else burned. Read to me again tonight, and I'll help you understand my cattle accounts. I'm good with numbers." A messenger arrived that afternoon, supplies from town. The boy wouldn't meet Catalina's eyes, just dropped crates and left quickly. A note was pinned to the flour sack. Miguel opened it, face darkening. Offer still stands. Honest work for honest woman. Leave the arrangement. Pritchard. Pritchard's the merchant, Catalina said quietly. The one who wanted me. Miguel crumpled the note. I'm writing to town. No. Catalina caught his arm. Let them talk. These walls don't care about gossip. This is the kind of story that restores faith in humanity. Like and share if you're feeling it, and subscribe for the conclusion. That evening, she read the Odyssey aloud by firelight, voicing Penelope's suitors in pompous tones that made Miguel laugh. Deep, genuine, surprised by the sound of his own joy. Catalina stopped mid-sentence, stunned. What? He asked. I haven't heard laughter in this place, not since I arrived. Me neither. Not in 2 years. They looked at each other across the fire, something unspoken passing between them. Outside, hidden in the tree line, a figure watched through the window. Pritchard's ranch hand, taking notes. The blizzard hit mid-December with 3 days of fury. Catalina and Miguel were trapped inside, wind howling so loud they had to shout to be heard. But the cabin held. Every joint, every beam, every nail they'd driven together, it all held. Your work's good, Catalina said, watching the walls stand firm. Our work, Miguel corrected. They fell into domestic rhythm. She read aloud for hours. He listened, mending tack, learning words by listening. He taught her to braid rope properly. Their hands touched. She didn't flinch. The second night, she woke screaming. Catalina! Miguel was across the room instantly, hands visible, non-threatening. You're safe. You're here. The fire's banked. She was shaking, sweat-soaked, despite the cold. I dreamed I was burning again. Antonio was holding me down. He's gone. He can't hurt you. But I'm still afraid. Her voice broke. I hate that I'm still afraid to be touched, to trust anyone close to me. Miguel sat on the floor beside her bedroll, careful to keep distance. When Isabella died, my first thought was relief. That makes me a coward, doesn't it? It makes you human. I haven't touched another person beyond handshakes in 2 years, he admitted, scared of what it might mean, scared I'd mess it up again. They sat in silence, 2 damaged people learning they weren't alone. The third night, exhausted from tension, Catalina fell asleep against his shoulder while he read haltingly from her book. He was learning, slowly. He didn't move until dawn, afraid to break whatever fragile thing was growing between them. She woke, realized where she was, met his eyes. I'm sorry, she started. Don't be. You smell like pine smoke, she murmured, half asleep still. And safety? You feel like home, he whispered back. Morning broke clear and bright. The storm had passed. The week before Christmas, Catalina insisted on accompanying Miguel to town for supplies. I'm tired of hiding, she said. Town's not kind to you. Then they can be unkind to my face. Elkridge was 20 miles south, a collection of wooden buildings around a church and general store. They arrived Sunday morning, just as services let out. Catalina walked beside Miguel down Main Street, chin up, scar visible in cold sunlight. Conversation stopped. Women clutched children away. Men stared with contempt, or unwanted interest. Padre Whitmore blocked the mercantile steps, flanked by Amos Pritchard and 3 church elders. "Brother Torres," the priest's voice carried, "this woman is known for sin. You defile her and yourself with this arrangement." People gathered, forming a crowd. Pritchard stepped forward, oily smile in place. "Catalina, my offer stands. Honest work at my boarding house. Save both your reputations. End this." The trap closed around them. Public accusation, social pressure, the weight of judgment. Miguel felt panic rise, the old instinct to avoid scandal, to protect his name. Isabella had cared so much about appearance. He'd spent years enabling that lie. This is where everything changes. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Share this with someone who needs courage today. "It's just work," he heard himself say. "The cabin's nearly done." The words hung in frozen air. Catalina went rigid beside him. Just work. He'd reduced everything, the shared nights, the laughter, the trust they'd built, made her nothing again. "See?" Pritchard's smile widened. "Even he knows you're not worth defending." Catalina turned and walked to the wagon without a word. The silent ride home lasted forever. At her cabin, she climbed down, spoke without looking at him. "Don't come back. The cabin's finished. Our contract's done." She closed the door he'd hung in his face. Christmas week arrived cold and clear. Miguel sat alone in his ranch house, whiskey bottle on the table, staring through frost-glazed windows at Isabella's grave on the hill. The house was warm, well-built, empty as a church. He'd done it again. Chosen appearance over honesty, cowardice over courage. Catalina had offered him truth, rough, scarred, real truth, and he'd called it just work to save face before people whose opinions meant nothing. The bottle sat untouched. Drinking wouldn't fix this. 3 miles away, Catalina worked alone in lamplight, finishing final details, barn door, garden fence, small repairs. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind was numb. She should have known better than to hope. Men always disappointed, even good ones, especially good ones, because their betrayals hurt worse. Christmas morning, she woke to find something on her doorstep. Wild flowers frozen in ice, like preserved memories. No note, just flowers. She carried them inside and wept. That afternoon, old Samuel Reed rode up to Miguel's ranch. Samuel was 70, weathered as saddle leather, the man who'd taught Miguel everything about ranching. "You look like hell," Samuel said, not dismounting. "Feel worse." "Good. That woman built more with broken hands than most men manage with whole ones. Your wife wanted pretty. This one wants real. You going to let fear win twice? What if she won't forgive me? Then you earned it. But you still got to try, or die alone in that cold bed you're making." Samuel rode off, leaving Miguel standing in his empty yard. He looked at Isabella's grave on the hill. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Sorry I couldn't be what you needed. Sorry I couldn't love you the way you wanted." He took a breath. "But I'm done apologizing for wanting something real." He saddled his horse and rode toward town. Sunday morning, Miguel Torres stood before the packed church, hat in his hands. "I'm here to confess," he said, "and to set some things right about Catalina Vega." Meanwhile, Catalina was on the roof when she heard hoofbeats. She'd been hammering the final shingles, determined to finish everything alone. When Miguel appeared below, she didn't stop working, didn't acknowledge him. He dismounted, picked up the spare hammer, and climbed the ladder without asking permission. They worked side by side in silence for an hour. The roof was completed under their joint effort, the last piece of the cabin they'd built together. Sitting on the ridgeline, breathing hard, Miguel finally spoke. "I stood in front of the whole congregation this morning, told them everything." He stared at the mountains. "Told them about my cowardice, about calling us just work when you're the realest thing I've known in years. Told them you're worth 10 of their so-called decent folk." Catalina said nothing, waiting. "I said if they wanted to judge someone, judge me. You built a life from ash while they threw stones." He turned to face her. "I'm not good with words, Catalina. Got that proven Sunday last. But I'm good with my hands, and I'm trying to be good with my heart." "What are you asking, Miguel?" "Let me build a life with you. Not pretty, not fancy, just honest." She studied him. Gray-streaked hair, weathered face, earnest eyes that finally saw her clearly. "I don't need rescuing," she said slowly. "Never did." "I know, but I wouldn't mind a partner, equal share, equal say." Miguel extended his hand. "Deal?" This time when they shook, he pulled her close, asking permission with his eyes first. She nodded. Their first kiss was gentle, terrified, perfect. A sound made them look up. On the horizon, dust rose, wagons approaching. "What's that?" Catalina asked. "Town families. After my sermon, some folks felt ashamed. They're bringing lumber, tools, food." Miguel smiled slightly. "They want to help build your barn." "Our barn," Catalina corrected. They climbed down as the first wagon arrived. Families with children, men with tools, women with food baskets. Even Padre Whitmore came, awkward and apologetic. Pritchard slunk past, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The community that had judged them came to rebuild. Catalina stood beside Miguel, watching them work, and felt something she'd thought was lost forever. She belonged somewhere again. We're almost at the end of this beautiful journey. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this story of redemption with everyone who needs to hear it. Late March brought the first true spring day. Catalina awoke in the finished cabin. Sunlight streaming through windows Miguel had fitted perfectly. He was asleep in the chair by the banked fire. He rode home most nights, courting properly, respecting her need for time and space. She watched him sleep. This man who'd chosen truth over ease, partnership over appearance. His face was peaceful in ways it hadn't been last fall. He stirred, met her eyes, smiled. "Morning, morning." They cooked breakfast together, eggs from her new chickens, bread she'd baked, coffee he'd brought from town, easy partnership, comfortable silence. Outside, the garden plot waited. They spent the morning planting carrots, beans, potatoes, wildflowers at the edges because Catalina wanted color. Their hands worked the soil together, planning harvest, building future. A rider approached around noon, Pritchard, hat in hand. "Miss Vega, Mr. Torres," he cleared his throat. "I came to apologize. I misjudged." "You didn't misjudge," Catalina interrupted calmly. "You couldn't see past surfaces. Simple as that. I hope there's no hard feelings." "There aren't, but there's no business either. Good day, Mr. Pritchard." He left, dismissed, without anger, without power to hurt them any more. Evening came soft and golden. They sat on the porch. Miguel had built her a bench, watching mountains turn purple in fading light. "Marry me," Miguel said quietly, "when you're ready. Could be tomorrow, could be years. I'm not going anywhere." Catalina took his hand. "Ask me when the wildflowers bloom full. I want to say yes when the world's alive again." "Deal." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the first stars appear. The cabin stood solid behind them, every beam, every nail, every moment of shared work visible in its walls. The barn rose beside it. The garden held seeds of future harvests. "You know," Miguel said, "you're beautiful." Catalina touched her scar, smiling slightly. "I'm scarred." "Same thing, way I see it. Shows you fought and won." Night fell completely. Firelight glowing warm through the cabin windows. In the meadow, early wildflowers dotted the grass, small, determined, reaching toward spring. Later that night, lying in her bed, Catalina thought about everything that had brought her here, the fire, the pain, the judgment, the loneliness, and finally, the man who saw past surfaces to the strength beneath. She'd built this cabin with her own hands, built a life from ashes and determination. And now she was building something even stronger, a future based on truth, not appearances, on partnership, not possession, on love earned through shared labor and honest words. Outside, an owl called. The wind whispered through pine trees. The world spun on toward tomorrow. And for the first time in years, Catalina felt no fear about what that tomorrow might bring. Spring arrived in full glory. Wildflowers bloomed across the meadow like scattered jewels. Purple, yellow, white, dancing in the warm breeze. Miguel rode up at dawn, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Catalina met him on the porch, curious. "The flowers are blooming?" he said simply. She smiled. "They are." He unwrapped the cloth, revealing a simple silver ring. Nothing fancy, just honest metal, worked by honest hands. "Catalina Vega," he said, voice steady. "Will you build the rest of your life with me?" She took the ring, held it to the light. Simple, strong, real. "Yes." They married that afternoon. Padre Whitmore performed the ceremony in the meadow surrounded by wildflowers. Town families attended, bringing food and celebration. Even Pritchard came, staying in the back, saying nothing, just witnessing. Samuel Reed stood as Miguel's witness. He winked at Catalina, told him you were worth the fight. As sunset painted the sky gold and crimson, Miguel and Catalina stood alone on their porch, husband and wife, partners, equals. "You know what I've learned?" Catalina said, leaning against him. "What's that?" "Pretty fades like summer paint, fancy breaks under winter wind, but honest, honest builds a life that holds." Miguel kissed her forehead. "And in that holding, broken things don't just mend, they become something stronger." Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button one more time. Subscribe for more tales of courage and love, and share this with someone who needs to remember that real beauty comes from strength and honesty. The mountains watched over them, ancient and patient, as the cowboy and the scarred woman stood together, building tomorrow, one quiet moment at a time. In the meadow, wild flowers swayed in evening breeze, small victories of nature, proof that even the harshest winters eventually surrendered to spring. And when love is built through labor, through truth, through choosing each other every single day, it blooms deeper than any flower ever could.